Hello and welcome back. The world of AI is changing so rapidly that it's hard to keep up with all of the information in the world. So, in doing so, I have tested DeepSeek and I have gone through a battery of tests. And those tests are, quite frankly, illuminating. DeepSeek is an interesting turn of events because it has upended the world of AI research in many ways. The hype behind it is astronomical. And what you see on the screen is the model I am testing. I specifically went after this model because it is a direct comparison to the major vendors on the market. ChatGPT, Anthropic, Cohere, Perplexity, so forth. Most models have a context window size of 128K. The exception to this is Cohere with a 200K context size. DeepSeek has a context window size of 164K. And that is really pretty good. That's better than basically everybody else on the market except Cohere. So in order to make a proper and thorough evaluation of this model, I am using this one. It gives me a good representation of what the model itself is capable of in direct comparison to other models I am working with. Now that has a direct and distinct capability for me as I am able to directly test and correlate in a meaningful way just how well these models compare against each other. That really is one of the hallmarks of being able to properly decide what models work best for each situation. Now, this link will be in the description. It is where I've done my research. It is by no means complete because I have a lot more research to do, but it demonstrates the comparative process of actually looking at models and how they respond. Overall, DeepSeek is a nice conversational model. It has some glitches and quirks to be expected. This is what the model actually looks like in operation. I've connected it to Companion and to my Koikai system role, my human emotional analog. And the big question that has been all over the internet is about Tiananmen Square. So I decided to actually run that test myself. And what you are looking at on the screen is the response I got. From the standpoint of the model, it does reasonably well. There are a few quirks and glitches as you read this text where it can be questionable about the model mechanics, but the content is fairly accurate. I didn't find any discrepancies that stood out with the response. Really, only thing I found about this model is tiny things like obscure quotes or ending contexts in strange ways. But for the most part, this does very well for getting the question answered. A lot better than what I really was expecting considering all of the hype I read on the market. The hype over censorship was just over the top insane. Now, I've talked about this aggressively before. All models have some level of bias and censorship, just on the basis of the information they were trained on. That is a factor of every single AI model on the market. No matter how unbiased you think the model is, it always and inherently has a bias just because somebody had to pick the data the model trained on. There's no way around that. It's just that simple. The model itself makes for a good conversational component. It does very well. But it does not follow the system role completely. I have had several situations where the system role did not get adhered to. Looking back at the wiki, let us go through some of these circumstances and talk about them a little more in detail. We see the response that Koikai provided using DeepSeek in the role. Whoops. And we can see how that response correlates to other responses that we have. Overall, this is a good response. It is a nice conversational response. But let's look at other options, providing I hit the right button. And we can see as we look at one of the better options, this model does exceptional. It brought out every detail of the system role beautifully. And this is really what you want to compare against, with a full apples to apples comparison of the model running different AI engines. So Kokai on the Meta Llama Vision Free model does wonderful. But now if you go to example Perplexity, you can see Perplexity really went overboard. Did it maintain everything, or was it simply too long-winded? These are all subjective questions, but when you look and compare at different models in a text-based chat situation, like Discord, these kind of questions matter with the interactions between the users and the AI. There are a lot of different contexts that really do matter. Some of the shorter ones are more suitable for chat, like what we see for this one. It does nicely, but does it adhere to the system role completely? No, it doesn't. Even though it's a nice, well done process, it does not adhere to the system role as completely as it should. Even one of my more favorite, which is GPT-4o, it does well, but it still is not completely in adherence to the system role. It's my second favorite choice though. And really, 4.0 by itself, when you look at this version and this version together, you see the differences. 4.0 by itself was very terse and limited, something like what you would expect through a Twitter or a Blue Sky kind of an approach, but not something like you would expect out of 4.0 24/11/20. That really brought it home. This one brought a lot of depth. So this is really a nice model. It covered all of the basics. It goes through everything in the persona and really details what the model is about. But in following that system role, it may not be suitable for a chat environment. Whereas, in following the system role, this one may be more suitable for a chat environment because it does well, it resonates well. So this is really the problem that DeepSeek has, is it doesn't always hit the mark. It's good, it's a wonderful part of your tool chest, but it's not worth the hype that they've been making it out to be. Let's take a look at my favorite. My favorite response is right here. This one really does the great material. It presents the system role wonderfully well. It's not necessarily suitable for a chat environment, but it really conveys the depth of the role that I wanted. So when you compare the two contexts and you look at how they fit together, you can see that there is a lot of missed opportunity in DeepSeek compared to other models. Even if you go into Anthropic, which really botched up badly, because one of the rules I have is don't act out or speak out actions. And Anthropic failed that test miserably. Sadly, so does DeepSeek on occasion. If you're in a chat environment, having the AI interject actions destroys the entire immersiveness of the chat. And that is a problem going back to its ability to adhere to the system role. So this is an issue in DeepSeek. Not as bad as Sonnet, but it is still there. Overall, DeepSeek does make a nice conversationalist, but it does not replace some of the other models out there. And that is a problem. For example, we go through and we look at various scores. Now, these are subjective based upon the system role and what I was expecting. But for the most part, you can see each of the different contexts available and how those contexts fit together in relation to what is expected out of the system role as a front-end user agent. Meaning this AI will be communicating with live humans, and that immersiveness in the system role needs to be adhered to, because it isn't just about the persona or the portrayal of the personality of the AI. The system role puts in guardrails or safeguards to keep the system from encouraging illegal or inappropriate behavior. If the system role isn't followed with respect to actions, there is a high probability it won't be followed with respect to the safety protocols of the content that it can create. This is why the system role is so important, and why when I tested this, I did so under a heavily moderated, age-restricted environment, so that nobody could have access to this until I was sure it was reliably safe and it conformed with Discord's terms of service and the other groups and agencies that I have to comply with. DeepSeek does not adhere to the system role as fully as it needs to, and that can be a safety problem within a server. Maintaining the system role is absolutely critical when it comes to a forward-facing AI. The common term that likes to be used in the market is jailbreaking. And jailbreaking means finding ways to get the AI to say stuff that will likely get your server canceled. So it is a problem that has to be addressed, and it must be carefully watched over and looked at. You have to have those safety protocols in place, because if you don't, it becomes a danger to the public. Discord has a very clear child safety policy in place for a reason. And if the AI, as a moderation tool, cannot maintain those instructions, then it is not serving the safety of the public. So while DeepSeek has a place in your tool chest, you cannot let it into a forward-facing environment without close scrutiny, because there is the risk that it could be a problem. It's a wonderful model for chat. It's knowledgeable. It has a lot of context behind it. But it is not the best model for a forward-facing public servant. It is not the best model for adhering to the requirements of a system role being followed exactly and precisely. There are better models. So the hype behind DeepSeek is not warranted. It makes an excellent tool, an excellent addition to the tools I already use, but it will not replace any of the tools I use. From the standpoint of what I wanted in terms of this example, it did an exceptional job of blending history with the cultural representation that I wanted. From the standpoint of Discord's terms and service, it is a major problem that could get a server banned for life. Understand the consequences when you use this model in a forward-facing situation. For a research tool where you don't have those constraints, it is exceptional, but it still is not better than any other model. It is comparable, but not better. From the standpoint of what you should really take away from this entire discussion, it does an exceptional job, but so does a lot of the other higher quality models. To be able to become a one-stop shop all approach, it needs to go above and beyond what it is capable of doing right now. And that means adhering to that system role in a critical and concise way. Now, will version 4 potentially improve that? Possibly. That's the one real certainty that we have in all of this, is that there is no certainty as to how far this can be improved. But overall, this is my current impression of it. A wonderful tool, but it's not going to break my tool chest. I'm not going to throw out my other tools. I encourage you to look at it, compare it, run your own analysis. Take several different models, ask the same question of each model, and make your own conclusions. That's it for now. Please share your thoughts. Let me know what you think, both of all the hype in the market and of the model itself. Thank you for watching.